Whilst it's true that you can make a vast array of colours from a combination of the core primaries, not all red, blue and yellow paints are equal, and some just aren't vibrant enough to be able to recreate the full range of exquisite colours that we see in flowers and fauna in the natural world. I've added 3 more colours into my limited palette choice in order to ease the mixing process. I usually recommend the full set of paints in my regular palette, as I find they offer the most versatility when it comes to mixing the widest range of colours we find in nature subjects. But it is possible to pare back the paints we use to a limited palette composed of a much smaller number of paint colours. This is a useful thing to do in 3 situations. Firstly, if you've just started watercolours and you don't want to splash out too much money on new supplies when you're unsure if you'll enjoy it and use them all. Secondly, if you're going out sketching in the field and want to travel light by limiting what you take with you. And thirdly, if you're looking to stretch yourself and improve your colour mixing skills by stripping things back to their basics. Some artists find it much easier to think through their colour mixing choices when they only have a few paints to choose from. If you've explored working with limited palettes before, you might have seen palettes of just 3 primary colours, a red, a blue and a yellow. Whilst it's true that you can make a vast array of colours from a combination of the core primaries, not all red, blue and yellow paints are equal, and some just aren't vibrant enough to be able to recreate the full range of exquisite colours that we see in flowers and fauna in the natural world. So I found it's really important to choose paints for our primaries that are capable of achieving the most vibrant colours, to give us the best chance of recreating that glowing vitality on our paper and to make our painted subjects look alive. And in addition to the primaries, I've added 3 more colours into my limited palette choice in order to ease the mixing process. These extra colours are especially useful for mixing greens, which is so important for painting botanical subjects. So let's take a look at my choices. Firstly, the primaries. I'm using Permanent Rose as my red, pigment number PV19. It's a really dark paint when it's undiluted, so it's got a wide tonal or value range which enables us to produce a broad range of colours from it. Also, it's lovely and vibrant, which means that we can add it into our vibrant and transparent yellow, Windsor Lemon, pigment PY175, and produce a more orange-red tomato type colour similar to the Scarlet Lake colour I have in my regular palette. Our blue is the dark but vibrant French Ultramarine, pigment PB29. Again, it can produce a wide tonal or value range, but is also transparent, so great for keeping clean, unmuddied colours when mixed. We can add it to the Permanent Rose to make rich purples in many different shades. Although we can mix the yellow and the blue to make green, it's just not able to create some of the more vibrant greens in nature. So for this reason, I'm adding in a very vibrant green, Windsor Green Yellow shade, pigment PG36, to the palette. It's worth noting that in the Munsell colour wheel, green is also a primary colour, so there's precedent for this. On its own, this is incredibly vibrant, so it will almost always be mixed with other paints to create a shade that we want. The other 2 paints I've added in are Payne's Grey. The Winsor & Newton version is a mix of P815, OBK6 and PV19 to make a dark blue grey. And Burnt Sienna, pigment PR101, a brown. These are neutral colours and already contain a mix of all 3 primary colours, blue, red and yellow. Because they're already mixed, they can be really useful for darkening colours and muting them to make them less vibrant. It's true that you could darken your colours using tiny amounts of the existing primaries, but if you do this, the mixing gets more complex and tends to reduce vibrancy because so many paints are in the mix. Also, Payne's Grey and Burnt Sienna are particularly useful because they can be mixed together to make versions of black easily. Because the paints in the limited palette are mainly very dark, we'll be using really watery mixes to create all the colours that we need. To that end, it can be useful to use a palette that has sections so that you can keep mixes on the go without them spilling into each other. And if you're working in the field, you may need to keep cleaning your palette off to keep your mixes separate. A limited palette can feel easier to work with because there are simply less paints to choose from when making your mixes. But with a limited palette, you're doing more mixing and you're needing to use very small amounts of colour to get the correct balances with your hues. And you're going to be working with watery mixes using teeny amounts of paint more often. All of this can ultimately make the colour mixing trickier than working with a larger selection of colours. And when working with a limited palette, you'll need to accept that you won't be able to match all of the most vibrant colours in nature. For example, this anemone, which was painted using the vibrant Opera Rose paint, really was this vibrant in reality. When I tried painting it with the limited palette, I needed to use a mix of permanent rose and French ultramarine, which meant I could only get it looking this bright. So, if you find it challenging to work with a limited palette, or you want to achieve a wider range of the most vibrant colours, do consider adding in some more paints, for example, adding in a few more to set yourself up with the 10 in my essential range. That said, I've really enjoyed experimenting with a limited palette, and I've done loads of testing with these 6 paint colours. Here are just a few of the paintings I've made using only these 6 paints, and I'm confident that the vast majority of colours can be made by using them. Oh, and remember, as well as mixing colours in the palette, we can mix on the paper by painting different coloured layers over each other. So the options really are limitless. And to get started, I recommend taking a few pages in your sketchbook to play around and see just how many colours you can make. Have fun with it. If you haven't taken your free full-length watercolour class yet, you're missing out. Step by step, I'll guide you through painting a 3D pear that looks real enough to pick up and eat. I'll explain not just what to do, but why, so you'll learn a reliable method you can use for painting all kinds of subjects that make your heart sing. You'll discover that you're already a better artist than you thought, and like thousands of others who painted their free pear before you, this discovery might just ignite a spark in you that wants to take this further. Which is where Nature Studio membership comes in. Joining gives you access to hundreds more classes that'll help you develop your skills and grow as an artist. And in addition to the classes, when you join, you become part of a global community of like-minded creatives who can support you and offer you feedback if and when you need it. Get the free pear class now and enjoy discovering wherever it takes you next.